The magic button, the traction control button, the active handling button, the nanny button. What exactly is this little button and what does it do? Let's talk about it in detail so that it makes sense, and we'll do that next.
Toys for life.
In reality, this is the button that controls your traction control and active handling, and it's located in the center console area, kind of right behind the shifter. And by pressing it in different secret ways, it enables 4 different combinations of active handling and traction control in your C6 Corvette. To understand what each of the 4 different modes does, we really need to have a good understanding of what active handling does, what traction control does, and how each one works. We also need to have a good working understanding of how anti-lock brakes work in the C6 Corvette, because without this technology, active handling and traction control wouldn't exist. Let's start out by talking about anti-lock brakes, or ABS for short. The anti-lock brakes in our C6 Corvette are always on, so to be crystal clear, there is no button that allows you to turn the anti-lock brakes on or off. So unless there's some sort of a malfunction or someone pulls a big fuse, the anti-lock brakes on the C6 Corvette are always going to be enabled. Anti-lock brakes do a fantastic job of slowing your C6 down quickly, typically in kind of icy or slippery conditions, without fully locking up any one of your C6's wheels. This greatly assists you to achieve the shortest stopping distance possible, given the weather conditions you happen to be in, while at least maintaining some sort of control during full braking effort. In general, ABS works by having a wheel speed sensor located in each one of the 4 wheels that gives accurate information to the control module as to how fast the wheel is spinning, or perhaps it's not spinning at all. Based upon the input from all 4 of the wheel speed sensors, if the brake control module determines that one or more of the wheels is about to skid or lock up, it can very quickly release and reapply the brakes at any one of the 4 wheels as many times as needed to prevent full lockup. When this happens, you can generally feel a little bit of a pulsation in the brake pedal as well as hear the pump running. And although we don't drive our Corvettes in the winter here in the Midwest, it's not uncommon when we're driving our other cars for the anti-lock brakes to kick in when it's snowy and icy out. Once the engineers had mastered anti-lock brakes, they decided there was other useful things that they could do now that the Corvettes had wheel speed sensors in place, and that led to traction control. In very general terms, the C6's computer knows when you are trying to accelerate rapidly, most likely from inputs such as the accelerator pedal and the throttle position sensors, and the manifold absolute pressure sensor, and likely a few others. So if the computer senses you are trying to accelerate rapidly, and the wheel speed sensors show that the rear tires are in fact accelerating rapidly, however, the front tires are not accelerating rapidly, then it kicks in and traction control is enabled to remedy the situation. The main intervention is the computer closing the throttle, even though your foot might actually be all the way to the floor. It can do this because there is no physical throttle cable in a C6 Corvette. The throttle is 100% controlled electronically by the computer. So purely in the name of science, here is an actual example of what is going on behind the scenes when traction control is intentionally activated while trying to do a burnout in a C6 Z06. All right, here's Ben's C6 Z06. The blue line here is the speed. So as he dumps the clutch and the throttle, just as it starts to break loose, you can see it goes from 6 miles an hour to like 25. That's when we're spinning. And here's the throttle position sensor in green and the accelerator pedal in white. You can see Ben continues to hit the throttle on the Gen 4s, which is what the C6 is. 88% is wide open. So even though he's given it more and more gas, this here we can clearly see because we're at lower RPMs. We're only at like 2,300 with all that LS7 torque. Even though he's giving it more throttle, the computer with traction control on is saying no way, and it's giving it less and less and less all the way down. It's only at like 48% throttle. So clearly we've got a strong intervention there. For timing advance, just as it kicks in here, again, when we started the burnout, The computer does seem to wake up, and it goes from 27 and boom, it drops it down by, what is that, like 20 degrees almost? And you can see it nicely intervenes as we predicted. So luckily we have this scan to kind of show you what's going on here behind the scenes. And again, the computer does a nice job of just keeping the tires spinning without it getting any worse. And here's where it finally hooks up, 18 miles an hour, and then it lets it take off again until he starts letting off the throttle. What about active handling? What exactly does it do? Well, it helps you out in situations like this. Active handling is another very useful tool designed by the engineering wizards to take advantage of the anti-lock brake system's ability to accurately and independently apply the brakes to any one of the 4 tires on your C6 Corvette. Now, I'm not 100% exactly sure of everything that's going on behind the scenes with active handling, but I do know that the engineers added a yaw rate sensor, a steering wheel position sensor, a lateral accelerometer, some serious software updates, and probably some additional hardware that I'm not aware of. And they did this so that the new active handling system could make decisions and, when appropriate, apply any one of the 4 brakes or even a couple of them when the system deems appropriate and beneficial in order to help you to swerve and corner aggressively without spinning out and losing control. Here's a better explanation of how active handling works from a General Motors engineer. In this demonstration, he's talking about the C5 Corvette, but the C6 Corvette's active handling is extremely similar.
Now here's an animation developed by our engineering team to help show the performance of active handling. It simulates an aggressive lane change maneuver on a wet surface. The white car is equipped with active handling, and the blue car is not. As the car enters the maneuver, the driver applies more steering input than the car can react to. The car starts to push or understeer. The active handling system senses this and applies the inside rear brake, helping to pull the car into the corner. Once the car is in the left lane, the driver tries to straighten it out, but the yaw inertia of the car causes it to turn more than the driver wanted. Active handling reacts to this oversteer condition by applying the outside front wheel brake. The resulting torque helps keep the rear end of the car from getting too loose. As the driver returns to the right lane, a similar sequence of events unfolds, worsened by the whipping action of the maneuver. The active handling system assists the driver in maintaining control by applying the brakes appropriately. This affords the driver a greater level of control, as well as gradually slowing the car to a more manageable speed.
So now that we all, including me, have a refresher as to how active handling, anti-lock brakes, and traction control work, as well as what they do, let's talk about the 4 different modes of assistance that are available to us by hitting the magic button. The first mode is the default mode, and it is the mode that is active every single time you start your C6. It gives you the full nannies, if you will, capabilities offering both full traction control and full active handling. In my opinion, the default mode is the mode that you would want it locked into if you were to loan your C6 to anybody. Actually, I don't recommend you loan it to anyone. So once again, purely in the name of science, here is me in the C6 Corvette. I've got it in mode 1, full active handling, full traction control. And as I enter this turnaround area, I'm actually mashing the throttle, trying to kind of drift and slide out the rear end. But as you can see and actually hear, the C6's computer is overriding it.
I say,
and it's keeping things well under control. Let's move on to mode 2, which is entered by simply hitting the magic button 1 time. And in this mode, you will still have 100% of the active handling, but as the dash will clearly tell you, traction control has been turned off. That time I definitely had full control over the throttle, but I could feel active handling, trying to keep it so that the rear end didn't slide out too much. So mode 2 is the mode you would use if you want to show off a little bit and you'd like to reduce, but it won't eliminate, the chance of this happening. Mode 3, also known as competition mode, is very similar to mode 2 in that traction control is turned off, but this time the active handling component is turned down quite a bit as well. So it'll actually have a little bit of faith in you that you know what you're doing before it jumps in and tries to save you. So mode 3, or competition mode, is a mode a lot of guys use as they get quite good at autocross or road racing so that they can test their own skill level out a bit more without fully turning off the babysitters. And last but not least is mode 4, which you enter by pressing and holding the active handling button for 5 whole seconds, which gives you plenty of time to really think about if you want to dismiss the babysitters 100%. In this mode, active handling and traction control are both turned off and you're on your own, except of course you'll always have anti-lock brakes if things go wrong.
And I just lose it. At this point, there's only one thing running through my mind. That did not just happen.
My hope is that you found this video informative and that you now have a better idea of what each of the 4 active handling traction control modes do in your C6 and how you might use each one to get the most out of your car. Some guys on the internet will always tell you to turn all of this garbage off. You don't need it. My suggestion is you make an informed decision for yourself and proceed as you feel comfortable. And now, if you would, tap that thumbs up below, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and most of all, thanks for watching.